Okay, welcome back to the Kohler Show. This is going to be a sports episode back from the weekend. Today is November 15th. Make sure you like, subscribe, follow, whatever on whatever platform you are watching or listening to this on. Let's do a weekend recap of what happened in sports. So this weekend we went 18, 14, and 1. With the push being the lock of the week. So lock of the week now 0-3-1. All the rest of the picks hitting at 60%. Lock of the week. Can't figure it out. I don't know. I don't know what to do. I don't know. But yeah, so total on the year we are 39-70 or 39. We've hit 39. 39 wins, hitting just over 60%. Sorry, I don't know why that was such a mental block. Yeah, the upset parlay after hitting 2 weeks ago was one play away in the Ole Miss-Alabama game after North Carolina ended up beating Wake Forest and Purdue ended up being Illinois. Ole Miss just wasn't able to pull it off against Alabama at home, so it looks like Ole Miss is done. Alabama is still, I wouldn't say barely alive. Alabama's probably not alive. LSU, though, barely winning by 3 points. At Arkansas, they barely stay alive. So, yeah, it was really kind of just a by the books weekend. TCU beat Texas at Texas. Texas, I don't know what to tell it. Like, Texas fans are the most, like, born on third. Michigan fans love to say this about Ryan Day, but Texas fans literally have just been riding that 05 national championship for, what's that, going on? We're almost at 20 years that we've been riding that, Texas. And besides those Colt McCoy years after that, I mean, you would think that Texas is a national contender constantly, and they haven't been since Brown left. And even that year with Colt McCoy, they looked awful against Alabama. Most teams do. But Texas is just, they have the stadium, they have the money. Unfortunately, I think the program's a lot like Austin, the city itself. Like, everything looks nice and everything's new and there's tons of money and tech companies everywhere, and you know, you got all these bars and Rainy Street and everybody's moving there, but like deep down, it's still a sweaty, swampy piece of shit. And like, it doesn't matter how many people move there. Like, you still need to go out and like perform. And at the end of the day, Texas just, they aren't winning. They aren't winning at home. Like, they aren't winning the big games at home. They lost to Kansas last year. They lost this. I mean, yeah, I don't know what they need to do, because they have Quinn Ewers is supposed to be the best quarterback prospect since Vince Young. Arch Manning, the next Manning's prodigy, is coming in. He's supposed to be the next guy after Quinn Ewers. They have Xavier Worthy, who's going to be a first-round pick at receiver. Bijan Robinson's a first-round pick at running back. I guess Sarkisian's only had 2 draft classes, but with the transfer portal and everything, you'd think they would be more competitive than this, and they're just not. So I don't have an answer for Texas fans. You guys suck. You're right there with like Texas A&M, where you guys can like pay for all the shit you want, but you need to like put it all together at the end of the day. And it's just the way they play football, I guess. It just doesn't work out. Like, they blew it against Oklahoma State, and they were winning the game until the fourth quarter, blew it against Oklahoma State. They needed to win this game. I believe they were coming off a bye week even. Or did they play like Kansas or something? I don't know. It doesn't even really matter. They needed to win this game. This was like a must win for the program. It would have been a huge. But yeah, TCU pulls it out. Looks like TCU, pending an upset against Baylor, which is kind of like a rivalry game, and that could be a slip-up game. I don't think it will be. I've been wrong before. I was wrong last week. And between Baylor and then the Big 12 championship game, which looks like it'll be against Kansas State, I mean, all winnable games from here on out for TCU. Not a lot of tough. Yeah, at Baylor this week. That's about it. So yeah, looks like TCU will win out and go to the playoff, and it looks like Georgia will probably win out and go to the playoff. Georgia still does have that SEC championship game, but as of right now, it'll probably be against LSU, who I'm still not sold on. I mean, they've been looking good. They did beat Alabama at home. Unfortunately, the SEC championship game will be held at a neutral site, and so they'll have to play Georgia at a neutral site. Georgia's got a really good defense, and they looked really good against a lot of really good teams. So I don't see LSU beating Georgia, and I think Georgia's automatically in. I think TCU's automatically in, and so that comes down to Michigan and Ohio State, who are just two freight trains heading right at each other, coming into the last week of the season, November 26th, at the Horseshoe in Columbus. Michigan and Ohio State, the only two top 10, both scoring offense and defense. So they have two of the best offenses, two of the best defenses. Michigan's more of a run it, control the clock, kick field goals if you have to, drag you out into the deep water and just drown you. Ohio State is more of the score fast passing offense. They don't run the ball too well, and the offense is leaning more and more towards Marvin Harrison Jr., who it seems kind of like if you can shut him down, and I'm not going to say if you just shut him down, you're going to be good, because they got 5-star receivers all over the place. Ohio State is kind of a one-dimensional team. Not saying Michigan isn't, because Michigan is the other way. In November in Ohio, it's much more easy, in my opinion, to establish the run than to establish the pass, because you don't know what the weather is going to be like. And throwing the ball, yes, it is quicker to score. It is also a quicker way to go 3 and out. And I think Michigan also has the upper hand on defense. Now, we saw Penn State play Ohio State really, really close for 3.5 quarters. And then Ohio State just in 6 minutes, scored 4 or 5 times. So it's going to be an interesting game. It's going to be an interesting game because Michigan has Illinois this weekend, who just lost back-to-back games against Michigan State and Purdue, both at home at Illinois. So this game's at Michigan. I don't see it being close. Chase Brown got hurt, the star running back for Illinois. They're saying that he might play. I don't think he will. Michigan, they need to figure out how to complete passes in the passing game. They're better than last year passing the ball, but still, they could be putting up well over 50 points a game if they can complete. If J.J. McCarthy, the new quarterback there, can complete passes down the field. That's been really the only weakness of the whole team. The defense they're better at rushing the passer this year. They're better at stopping the run this year. The secondary looks better. On offense, the running game looks more efficient. They have more playmakers. Losing Eric All was kind of a bummer, but it's just this Michigan team, if the quarterback can get it together, then I think this is a national championship level team. So yeah, those teams are just going straight at each other. Yeah, I think it'll be hard if that's a close game in Columbus to say that both those teams still shouldn't make the playoff. I would like to see, one make it as the 4 seed and one make it as the 3 seed, with Georgia and TCU being the 1 and 2 seed. Or I guess it would be TCU being the 3 seed and then the 2 and the 4 seed being the 2 teams from the Big Ten. I couldn't putting in like LSU, who would have 3 losses, I think, after Georgia. Bama doesn't look good. They have 2 losses now, I believe. Let's go to the rankings here. Yeah, Bama has 2 losses. LSU has 2 losses. I think they're going to lose a third time. Tennessee would be the only other one with a loss to Georgia. And then the Pac-12 again eating itself alive with UCLA going down to Arizona. Jed Fish has that program going after bouncing around as a coordinator for a lot of his career, and Oregon going down to Washington, which was a huge surprise to me. I was borderline gonna make that my lock of the week, which I guess I'd rather have a push than another loss, but. Oregon going down to Washington as 13.5-point favorites at Oregon is, Oregon can never win a big game. I don't know. I mean, like now we can look and say like UCLA, yeah, that was kind of like a whatever win for them. It was UCLA at home. UCLA just lost to Arizona at the Rose Bowl in LA. Like it's like this in the Pac-12 every year. I don't understand. It's like a better like reasoning for why we need the playoff, because now we're gonna have Oregon and Utah playing. It would be Oregon playing to get back into the playoff, but I mean, yeah, I don't know. I was gonna say that like Mario Cristobal was the Mario Cristobal was the reason after he left for Miami. And Miami, who also does a good job at recruiting, like they suck. But like Cristobal always got these great recruits to go to Oregon, which by the way, you should. That's where Nike's located, Nike headquarters. You should be turning out top recruiting classes. And he would blow it at Oregon every year, and I thought it was just him, but now it looks like maybe it wasn't just him. Even though Miami does suck butt too. Miami sucks butt. So yeah, I really don't know what to make past these top 4 teams, and 5 if we're including Tennessee. But again, like Tennessee could, I guess you would just have to put up Tennessee's Alabama win against Michigan or Ohio State's Penn State win. Because the rest, I guess they did beat LSU too. So I guess, yeah, you might have to put in Tennessee, or the argument would be Michigan or Ohio State, the loser of that game, up against Tennessee for that 4th spot. And then USC is kind of lurking there. But again, I don't think USC, I could see losing another game because they don't play defense. I don't know how you could put this team in that doesn't play defense. They give up almost 25 points a game. So yeah, it's they basically did just turn into Oklahoma from, like, Lincoln Riley literally turned USC into Oklahoma somehow in 1 year, which, I mean, that's a good job. He probably should be a front runner for Coach of the Year. But yeah, they got UCLA, Notre Dame, and then they'll probably play. And they'll play the winner of this Oregon-Utah game this week in the Pac-12 championship, most likely. So, yeah, that's where college football stands right now. It's just the way it always goes. There's not a lot of big games this week, which is kind of nice leading into the rivalry week. So, I mean, really, we got Michigan, Illinois, which that game is kind of lost some of its luster with Illinois losing the past 2 weeks. TCU at Baylor. I don't think Baylor is even going to be ranked this week. So it's kind of just one of those. It's kind of a rivalry game. Texas teams, they're fairly close in proximity. But yeah, other than that, Georgia plays Kentucky at Kentucky, which that would be a huge upset for Kentucky. I don't see it happening, but I mean, they do have Will Levis. I mean, that would be a statement win for Will Levis. Ohio State plays Maryland. I mean, there's no other big games. Texas plays Kansas, who beat them last year at Texas. So if Kansas beats Texas this year, they might have to just start from the ground up. And then, I guess USC UCLA this weekend is at the Rose Bowl is a pretty big one. But again, that game lost some of its luster because of UCLA losing to Arizona. Oregon Utah lost some of its luster because Oregon lost to Washington. So those games do matter, I guess, per se, in a 12-team playoff, but not in the 4-team playoff, unless, of course, USC loses. So, yeah, that's where we're at going into the week here. Tuesday. And it looks like some coaches are going to be hired here soon. It looks like Nebraska's close to finding its coach, Auburn, Colorado, which is going to be a big deal because of all this stuff happening with the transfer portal and recruiting. So hopefully we'll have more on that next week. Going on to the NFL this weekend. The NFL this year is, I guess it usually is like this, but there's only really like a few teams. There's some big upsets this week with I think the Vikings beating the Bills at home was a pretty big upset. The Eagles, undefeated Eagles, losing to the Commanders at home was a huge upset this week. And then, it's just, let's start here. I went on a rant about 2 weeks ago about the Lions, the loser Lions fans, and how they don't understand what building a winning roster looks like. They just think that if you just go out there and you spend money, you're going to be a winning team. Even though we don't really have a quarterback, and like there's so many holes on this roster, and it's not deep at all. But like, if you go out and you draft well and you get guys and you play them when they're young, you can build on something. And everybody was hating on this TJ Hawkinson trade. Oh, we only got a second and a third, but we had to give up a fourth and probably a fifth if the Vikings win a playoff game, which it looks like they will. And like that was the Chicago Bears who traded Roquan Smith for a second and a fifth, and then traded that second round pick for Claypool, the receiver from Pittsburgh. So they basically traded Roquan Smith, who's arguably definitely a top 3 linebacker, arguably one of the best linebacker in the NFL, for Claypool and a 5th round draft pick. And the Lions traded TJ Hawkinson, who's probably around I would say he's like, you could say he's a top 5, top 6 tight end. Tight end, not linebacker. He's a top 6 tight end, and you got a 2nd and a 3rd round draft pick. So we're talking about, if you compare it to the Roquan Smith trade, we got way more for a tight end that you probably have to pay $20 million a year. He's going to reset the market. Him and Kyle Pitts are the next 2 that are going to reset the market. So, and by the way, since that trade, we've had 3 tight ends score touchdowns. So it's a replaceable position, first off. Second off, we're saving money. Third off, we got 2 really good draft picks out of it. And we're on a 2-game winning streak since then, playing the Giants this week, who, by the way, the Giants, I believe, are pretty overrated. I think Brian Dable deserves a huge pat on the back for what he did there. But I don't find a lot of their wins really impressive. They play in close games every time, and they win close games, which is really what you want. But I don't think Daniel Jones is the quarterback of the future. He only has 8 touchdowns this year. Saquon Barkley is playing out of his mind. So if he goes down, I feel like this thing's going to crumble. And the defense is playing really well. Which they had a good secondary. They have 1st-round picks across the line, actually, with Thibodeau, Dexter Lawrence, Leonard Williams. Those guys were all 1st-round picks. The linebackers are their weak spot in the defense, but is what it is. And they have some. I mean, the Titans, week 1 of the season, they won by 1 at Tennessee. That's a pretty good win. The Ravens at home was a pretty good win, I guess. And that's it. They beat the Panthers by 3. They beat the Bears. They beat the Packers, who are just now turning it around. The Packers look like they might be back. The Jags and the Texans are their wins, with losses to the Seahawks, at Seattle, which is a tough one, and Dallas. So I know that they have won more than they've lost, but not really impressively at all. And by the same way, I see the Lions able to win this game. I'm not saying they are going to. Let's look at the spread on it. What's the spread? I believe it's in New York too. And the spread is 3 points. Give me the Lions +3 in this one. And I'll say that the Lions win this one. But yeah, it's just going back to crybaby Lions fans. I put that out 2 weeks ago, and we're already seeing the payoffs from it. So, yeah, we could be on a 3-game winning streak heading into Thanksgiving against the Bills. Bills blew it against the Vikings at home. I don't know what happened there. I think Buffalo's kind of beat up, especially in the secondary. That kind of showed. Justin Jefferson just kind of destroyed them. And yeah, they couldn't stop. Whenever they gave Minnesota the ball back, Minnesota go down and pretty much score in the second half. And Buffalo's biggest weakness is running the ball. And when you can't run the ball, and when your quarterback is basically, that's another. We'll get back to that. When your quarterback's basically a running back, it's gonna break at some point. Daniel Jones is gonna break at some point. Justin Fields is breaking at some point. Josh Allen, who is one of the better passers in the league, but they still use him as a running back because they can't run the ball. It's an issue. It's a huge issue for them, and it showed against the Vikings because that's the way you run the clock out, is you keep the ball on the ground, you keep the clock rolling. You get these 12, 15 play drives get together, melt off, 8 minutes, 6 minutes. And that's how you win the games when you have a big lead. They couldn't do that because they can't run the ball. So that leads to punts. Give the ball to a team that can score like the Vikings, and there you go. Now, I don't think Buffalo, a lot of people are talking about, is Buffalo, should we worry about Buffalo now? Is Buffalo in trouble? And I don't think really they are. They still beat the Chiefs, who are the other team that they have to worry about. What this week did prove, though, more than anything, is that the NFC is still for real. The AFC has been talked about this year like they're just like head and shoulders above the NFC, and I never really saw it. I saw teams like the Packers or the Niners kind of struggled at first. The Saints I saw being bad, so that wasn't a surprise to me. Tampa Bay struggled. I didn't see that coming. Like, Tom had a rough start to the season. But now we're getting down to it, and in the AFC, you got Buffalo and Kansas City. Those are the two teams that I think we're looking at are probably going to make it. Miami and Cincinnati look pretty good, both with their weaknesses. Cincinnati somehow can't protect the quarterback still. I don't understand that. And their defense is good, not great, good enough to win games. But, yeah, Cincinnati could get hot. I don't see Cincinnati. It's going to depend on if Jamar Chase comes back and is Jamar Chase. Miami also kind of in it like a middle-of-the-road defense. and a offensive line. But I mean, their offense looks great with Tua back, who I thought he was dead in the middle of the season. Like you would have thought he died in the middle of a game, in the middle of the season. But he's come back and he's playing good. And I mean, they can score. They for sure can score. They got fast receivers. And they had a comeback win against Detroit. Detroit was up on them. So I don't. This week they really just buried Cleveland. Cleveland looks dead in the water though, so that's good for Houston. And then the NFC side, you got Philadelphia, who did lose, but still has looked really good. Minnesota looks really good all of a sudden. Their biggest weakness is their corners, which is it's gonna come down to it. San Francisco, all of a sudden, I am so upset. San Francisco lost Trey Lance. This offense with Trey Lance at quarterback would be electric. I mean, they're running all these plays with Debo out of the backfield and McCaffrey, and they got Ayuk, who looks like a legitimate receiving threat, and Kittle, who's basically an extra tackle and receiver. Somehow he's the best blocking and can just crazy yard after catch potential with Kittle. You got Christian McCaffrey, who's one of the best all-purpose running backs in the league. You got Elijah Mitchell back now, who you can use to just kind of gash him, and then I'm going to see CMC busting a bunch of big runs. I mean, Danny Gray, the rookie, looks like a deep threat. And then Juwan Johnson, I believe. Yeah, Juwan Johnson out of Tennessee, the receiver. He's just a good third receiver. I mean, they got weapons all over the place. Not to mention one of the best left tackles in NFL history, Trent Williams. And their defense can do it too. So this team really does come down to, again, this year, can Jimmy Garoppolo lead one of these big fourth quarter comebacks in a big game? And I know that they did against Green Bay last year, but I feel like that was more special teams than anything. Special teams and defense in the snow. It's going to come down because the way the NFL is, it will come down to one of these big passing games, Kansas City, Buffalo, or Tampa Bay, LA last year, or Cincinnati, Kansas City last year, or even the Super Bowl, where you're going to need Garoppolo to come down and lead this big drive down the field. And that's what it's going to come down to. And that's always been his knock. And it's kind of exciting to see it come to fruition. But San Francisco is a legitimate threat and beat the Chargers, who I don't know, the Chargers are the University of Texas of the NFL, but they've never won a championship. So they're just, I don't know. I don't know what they are. They're like the Texas A&M. They always have the best roster on paper, and then you look at them on the field, and I don't know. And then you got Tampa Bay, Dallas, and Green Bay all rounding into form. Tampa Bay all of a sudden looks really good. Seattle even looks pretty good. I don't think Geno Smith is I think he's having his time in the sun, and that's great, and he's going to get comeback player of the year, and good for Geno. I don't see them making a run. Tampa Bay looks like a really good team all of a sudden. They play really good defense. Rashad White's running the ball, which is going to open up for Leonard Fournette to run the ball better. They got all these receivers. Julio looks healthy again. Cade Otton's come together at tight end, the rookie out of Washington. And then you got Dallas, who they have, the Micah Parsons, Travion Diggs on defense. They can turn the ball over. They can get after the quarterback. And then Dak in the running game. I mean, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then Green Bay. Green Bay, who all of a sudden looked really good. Christian Watson finally looks like a receiver. Dobbs hopefully can get it back together. Randall Cobb just got activated. Sammy Watkins is back. Lazard and Tanyan and Alex Jones and A.J. Dillon. I mean, they're still Green Bay. They still have two-time defending MVP Aaron Rodgers, and they did beat Dallas in OT this week. So, I mean, they could be back. They could be back. So, yeah, I mean, that's a much deeper conference than in the AFC. And the AFC, again, putting out a bunch of upsetting teams. One more thing I wanted to touch on. Justin Fields. Justin Fields is having a pretty good year, but I just wanted to point some things out about Justin Fields because I've heard so much about how great Justin Fields is and how he's the future of the Chicago Bears. And I know this is probably going to sound like me hating on him because he's an Ohio State guy and a Chicago guy. But these are all real numbers, and this is really what I've seen watching every snap of Justin Fields this year. So he has 1,400 yards, 12 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions this year throwing the ball. So if I gave you those stats, you would be like, oh, so he's like, that's not a good quarterback. He's thrown over 200 yards one time. He's completed over 15 passes I believe 3 times. Let's see. 15 or more. He's completed 15 or more passes in a game 3 times this year. That's not good per se. It's not good at all, actually. I mean, let's be real. Like I was saying with all these other players, he's a running back. And this is what I was saying is like, oh, he doesn't have any weapons. David Montgomery's a pretty good running back. Khalil Herbert looks like a really good running back. Darnell Mooney had over 1,000 yards receiving last year and over 80 catches. Chase Claypool was a second-round pick and he was the Steelers' number 2 option. Cole Kmet was a second-round pick, and he looks pretty good. So, like, Velus Jones you picked in the 3rd round this year over guys like Dobbs and, Danny Gray, like guys that are contributing. So you have 1,000-yard receiver, two day 2 pick receivers, and a day 2 tight end. I get that the offensive line is just like thrown together, but over 200 yards once, and he barely went over at 208. 12 touchdowns, 7 picks. That's not a good touchdown to interception ratio. He's been sacked 36 times. But, I mean, like, if you look at the rushing stats, 749 yards rushing, over 100 attempts. Like, the past 2 games, he has been tearing it up, which good for him. And I really don't know if you get a good offensive line around him, like if that's going to change it. Like if all of a sudden he's just going to be lacing it, 300 yards a game. I don't see it. He's at 59% completion percentage right now this year. It's rough. It's rough, and there's so much hype on this guy right now as the quarterback of the future, because I'll give it to him. They have him in games, but he's going to break. Guys like this always break. Guys in the situation, they always break. They always break. It's going to happen. I don't know. When he got drafted, I said the Chicago Bears are going to break him, and it looks like I don't see how you can have that just continuously and just keep going, And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe next year they'll fucking draft 5 offensive linemen and sign. They have a lot of money, so maybe they'll sign a bunch of guys and draft a bunch of guys, and they'll have like the best offensive line, and he'll throw for 5,000 yards. But I've never seen it before. A quarterback go from, I guess let's look at Lamar Jackson's first year. Because he couldn't throw the ball his first year, and he only ran it. Let's look at it. Lamar Jackson's first year. It doesn't have how many games he started on here, but it has how many games he played. this is going to be annoying. 2018 Ravens. I know that Flacco started the season and then he came in. Oh, no. I should have had this ready, guys. I should have had this ready. Okay, game started. He started 7 games. So in 7 games, he had 1,200 yards, 6 touchdowns passing, 3 picks. What was his completion percentage? 58%. So I guess technically, yeah, maybe he could be Lamar Jackson. Maybe he could be. 695 rushing yards, 5 touchdowns, and he's already passed that. Well, it's taking him more games, but still. I mean, yeah, maybe he will all of a sudden get past that, but I would say even the Ravens receivers that year were worse. Willie Snead and 31-year-old Michael Crabtree were the receivers. They did have rookie Mark Andrews, Nick Boyle, John Brown. So, yeah, I mean, the Bears have younger receivers right now than younger receivers that were drafted higher than these guys right here, besides Crabtree, obviously. But, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. The jury I guess we'll put the jury still out on Justin Fields, but I'm not sold. From what I see is he's still not a good quarterback. This is his second year starting. I know they have a butt roster. It's just an awful roster. But yeah, that's going to be it for my weekend recap. I got another episode dropping today. I didn't drop it yesterday because I was feeling sick. Ate some bad mango. If the mango doesn't smell good, don't eat it. So yeah, I got another episode coming out today, but this is episode 11. I'm Kohler. This is the Kohler Show.